States are reeling from 8 consecutive days of unrest over the killing of George Floyd. There's no end to demonstrations in sight. President Donald Trump added fuel to the fire by promising a military crackdown if violence on the streets doesn't stop. Dozens of cities have imposed overnight curfews, and the National Guard has already been deployed in multiple states. But those measures haven't been enough to keep the peace. Shootings and deaths were reported during last night's protests, and authorities are preparing for more clashes tonight. Trump's promise to deploy American forces against American civilians on U.S. soil has been slammed by multiple voices in Washington, including Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden.
We're going to allow any president to quiet our voice. We won't let those who see this as an opportunity to sow chaos throw up a smokescreen to distract us from very real and legitimate grievances at the heart of these protests. We can't leave this moment. We can't leave this moment thinking that we can once again turn away and do nothing. We can't do that this time. We just can't. The moment has come for our nation to deal with systemic racism.
Well, let's head to Washington now for the latest on this with our reporter, Ray Suarez. Well, good evening to you, Ray. So Joe Biden has promised to rid the U.S. of endemic racism. But as the word endemic suggests, it is deep-rooted in the United States. So this is a clear campaign message. But what is Joe Biden actually proposing?
Well, he started to sketch out basic outlines in a meeting yesterday with black religious leaders, and today continued to expand on the themes in a tough anti-Trump speech in Philadelphia. The vice president and future Democratic candidate for president said that he would target education, housing, access to capital and investments, especially for minority Americans, in a program that he will outline and release in full later this month. But interestingly, he spoke in a way that is unusual for a presidential candidate. He said that the program has to begin not if he becomes president in January, but right away. And he called on Congress to act immediately to put in place a series of measures to deal with the ruction and dissent and violence on American streets today.
And Ray, in the meantime, Trump has congratulated himself in a tweet saying that his message of overwhelming force has actually quelled the protests in Washington. Now, you are in Washington yourself, so how has this threat of bringing in the military of overwhelming force changed the situation on the ground?
Unlike a lot of countries in the world, the United States has a tradition of not using its regular forces on its own soil. It is very unusual in the history of the United States, and certainly in the past 140 years, for American troops to be on the streets of this country. And the president, I think, bit off a lot, and he may be realizing it now when, in an expression of his own power, suggested that the army should be used to put down protests. He called himself the president of law and order and also a friend to peaceful protesters. But last night, when he walked across the park that's next to his own house, the White House, he showed that he was not a friend to protesters. The protests had been peaceful all day until combined forces of various police and military units cleared the park so he could walk through for a photo op in front of the church nearest the White House. It was an amazing moment, and the debate has clearly been joined even by members of his own party who wonder whether putting American troops on American streets, one serving officer even called it the American battle space, is a wise idea.
The American battle space. Well, Ray Suarez, thank you so much from Washington there.